On the heels of the 4th of July, it makes sense to discuss a uniquely American smartphone story, and we'll do that a little bit today. And also, we'll bring in some news and views from a lost interview with our friends in the Great White North. And maybe we'll finally find out why Taylor Martin loves to hate on Instagram. Welcome to the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week podcast from Pocketnow, where we discuss smartphones, tablets, and the state of mobile technology in 2013. I'm your host, Michael Fisher, editorial director at Pocketnow, and today I'm joined by Taylor Hateration Martin. Good morning to you.
Hello.
And Hateration. And by Joe, Baby You're a Firework, Levi. Welcome back to the show, man. It's been forever.
It has been forever. It's good to be back.
Now, it's there's some confusion maybe about why I named Joe Levi after a Kelly Clarkson song. That is Kelly Clarkson, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? We'll hear about it in the comments one way or
Yeah,
another.
I'm sure we will.
Mainstream stuff, I don't know.
I don't know. That stuff's too popular. But
I don't listen to it unless it's country and NASCAR.
NASCAR.
Well, they don't get that down in Super Carolina.
Well, the thing is, Joe, Joe's a busy man outside of Pocketnow, as you know. Joe, are you going to write a Get to Know Joe Levi piece? Are you on the schedule for that?
I haven't been scheduled yet, but
But you don't have
if I don't get it, I'm going to be worried about what they think about me.
No, good. Because I know there are some team members who didn't want to do one, so they're not doing one. But I know
I'd love to.
Oh, good. All right, good. So we'll find out about Joe Levi's interesting life in a future piece. But the most interesting thing to me is that I think last night, if all went according to plan, you were on some fireman radios taking care of fireworks administration, right?
Yeah. So my wife just got her ham radio license. I've had mine for a year and a half, 2 years now, I guess.
Do you want to share your handle again?
I am KF7NWA.
Yeah, ham radio.
And for you guys who grew up in the 80s and 90s, NWA, that's I'm not going to say an awesome musical group, but
No.
I'm not going to say the name or somebody's going to Paula Dean me off the show.
I am speechless.
So, about the fireworks.
Yeah, so ham radio, one of our charters is providing communications in emergencies and just other public venues and whatnot. It's completely non-for-profit. We cannot charge a dime for what we do, but we work very closely with the emergency response systems, whether that's fire, police. In this case, it was the police department over in Layton, Utah, my alma mater. I went right by Layton High School. And we, the cops that are there, they were all in charge of traffic control and people control, I guess, and us on the radios, we were there to provide emergency communications for them, and also to keep all of the people out of the blast zone, the danger zone. There's another old movie reference for you.
So in case that our international listeners don't get it, though I'm sure everybody does, on the 4th of July in America, we set off a bunch of fireworks because explosions are awesome.
Explosions and
loud noises and scaring dogs.
Rockets, red glare.
Yeah, and often this results in hundreds of people gathering to sit under the fireworks and ooh and ah. And so Joe, what kind of radio were you using to administer this thing? Were you handheld, or were you in a big old rig that needed a truck to carry around?
Well, first of all, we had closest estimates 5,000 to 7,500 people at this high school and park area.
Cool.
And all of us with the ham radios, we were inside the blast zone, so it was amazing. I got to hear and not see the fireworks because I was so close. The radio I was using was a handheld. It's a little 5-watt Yaesu. It was awesome and amazing, and the one thing to bring all this back to what we talk about at Pocketnow, because we're not ham radio now. Mm-hmm. There were so many people there, regardless of who your carrier was. And I had my two phones with me. I had the Galaxy S4 Verizon Edition and my Nexus 4 on T-Mobile. And even though I had full bars everywhere, I could not get any data, and phone calling was very, very spotty at best. But the ham radio always came through.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's that whole spectrum question, right? That whole and plus the backhaul and all that stuff. But I bet, Joe, and tell me if I'm wrong here. I bet that SMS worked pretty flawlessly.
I use Google Voice, so if I don't have data, I don't have text.
Oh, right, indeed. Well, I use Google Voice as well, but I usually forward to the. I usually receive via SMS because of situations like that. If I go to like Fenway or something, or some place where there's many tens of thousands of people, I still want to be able to communicate, and SMS messages don't take up much bandwidth at all.
It's not a bad idea. Well, until just recently, I had to pay 10 cents a message for my SMS. So
sauce.
Yeah. But now I'm unlimited, absolutely freaking everything on T-Mobile, and I'm happy, so I could switch that over now.
Yeah, and I switched over to the T-Mobile Simple Choice, whatever it is, plan. Simple, I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, I switched over, and I'm happy. I'm just not happy with their coverage in Charlotte.
Yeah, their coverage in Boston leaves something to be desired as well, or at least in my part of Boston.
But it's okay because I supplement with AT&T and Verizon.
Yeah, it's kind of doesn't matter, right? We're just buried in phones all the time.
Yeah, somebody's like, "Do you have data here?" I'm like, "Let me check my 3 phones. I got one."
Who's your carrier?
Yeah, everyone.
Speaking of AT&T and mobile devices, we have an announcement to make, which we already made, but we'll make it on the podcast since it was a podcast giveaway. We have a winner in our LG Optimus G giveaway. Isn't that exciting? Woo!
Awesome!
Yay! The LG Optimus G, the gently used LG Optimus G we were giving away, formerly Brandon Miniman's, recently used in an episode of Pocketnow's After the Buzz, our smash hits Emmy Award-winning series. Not really. I
hear we're up for an Emmy, though.
You definitely.
I think so.
Yeah. But
and a Webby.
Please do. I was going to say the Webby, but since that's like feasible in the anyway, please join us in congratulating Julian Brekovic. I'm sorry, Julian, I can't pronounce things, of Australia, who will be taking home the LG Optimus G. So that's going to go out, I think, tomorrow in tomorrow's mail, and it should arrive in Australia sometime in 2014. So,
I think they call it the Post in Australia.
They do indeed, and I want to take the opportunity.
We will send it by snail mail.
Yeah. No, unfortunately we
snail.
will. Yeah, it'll be strapped to a raven. Unfortunately, we couldn't give devices away to everybody who left us an iTunes review, but we did manage to get quite a few more reviews of the Pocketnow Weekly podcast. So thank you, everyone, for entering and for helping us out. The more iTunes reviews you get on a podcast, the more visible the podcast becomes as a thing. And I want to make clear we were not asking for only positive reviews. But thankfully, the lowest review we received on this round was 4 out of 5 stars. So really, thank you, everybody, and I am very pleased.
Because we're awesome.
Well, and to the person who left us 4 out of 5, we know who you are. I mean, no.
And we love you. Wait a minute, what?
How can we improve?
What is 1 star? You couldn't give us 1 more star?
What the hell?
It's probably because I interrupt everyone.
I love that. So just to clear that up, I feel like we talked about that on a show previously, but just to everyone who says, Taylor, stop interrupting in the comments, Taylor was instructed to interrupt on this very first Pocketnow Weekly. I was like,
I'm only following the rules.
I hate dead air. Please just, if there's silence, just talk. So it is my fault. I've created this monster, and now I have to deal with it. Yeah,
own it.
You never told me to do that. You mean I could have been like talking over the top of you this whole time?
Well, it was before. It was when the show was more content focused.
All right.
It's different.
Yeah, and now since Brandon thinks we're boring, we're not content focused.
Brandon's taking a break.
Well, Brandon's a new daddy now, isn't he?
Well, he's about to be a new daddy. Yeah.
That wasn't like yesterday?
No, well, the due date was yesterday. But anyway, yeah, babies, promptness. These kids today don't know.
She's going extra innings.
That's what I'm saying.
She's on her own schedule.
What do you think, boys?
Like a woman.
Should we talk about... Wow. Oh, God. Should we talk about mobile technology, maybe? Do you think?
I was having fun talking about babies.
I know. Not me. I was having no fun. Let's talk about mobile technology, because I want to talk about America. Because it's still the 4th, you know what I mean? That's not really. It's the 5th. But here's the thing.
It's the long weekend. It's still the 4th until we have to go back to work on Monday.
That's true.
Well, this is my second Monday this week, so
yeah, this is a very confusing week. Yeah, so if this podcast seems a little disjointed, everybody, it's because we had a day off yesterday, and now we're back to work, and we're gonna have a day off tomorrow. So it's a difficult life, but our brains just can't really work it out.
I know everyone out there should just be completely and totally wow.
You know what's funny?
We do so much for you, the listeners.
Because of the gulf, like Joe had dropped off and he was gone for like 10 minutes, so it feels like we've been talking for a half hour. But really, I think in the final product, we're only about like 5 minutes in. I'm not sure. But here's the thing. We have a headline, which I love, from Taylor Martin. And yes, this show apparently is, what did Taylor Martin write this week? Because
yeah, it is.
But I'm not the only one who thought that.
No, you're not. And Joe, I threw you some love, though. We got your thing. Because the thing is, your review isn't up yet. But the thing is, the Moto X, the Motorola X phone, the X phone, will become a victim of its own hype, says Taylor Martin of Pocketnow. I wonder why.
Oh, yeah.
So we've gotten a lot of news on the Moto X phone. If you haven't been following up on this, listeners, this past week has been a bevy of leaks and maybe controlled leaks. We don't know, and just Motorola news in general. We have the new Motorola branding that we discussed on last week's show, and we're finally starting to get word about what the company wants to do to make this phone the customizable, you should make a smartphone your own experience. It shouldn't be, mainstream. That kind of thing. We had been hearing that from the marketing messages, but we hadn't really seen what they were going to do. And I don't know what to think about it, because on the surface, it appears to be that the company is going to let you choose your color, not just the back cover, but also your trim color, which is pretty cool. And you can also engrave it. And there's something on the software side that I'm not sure. So
what you can send
snap
them your own
photo.
Picture.
Right, you can snap a photo and send it to Motorola, and then your phone arrives, and then when you unbox it, it has your photo as a wallpaper.
Yay!
Yeah.
Okay, now in their defense, setting a photo as wallpaper is so difficult to do. I mean, you gotta take the picture.
It's tough. It is, yeah.
And then you gotta choose
hit that button that says "Use as."
Thing.
Right.
Hey, if you're using an HTC phone, it's not easy. You have to go into the settings and go to the personalization sub-menu.
Yeah, the HTC is the hardest one. Yeah. But so, we have
Wow!
Spit it out, Michael.
Well, he's like a guy who does professional voice work too.
I know. Well, usually I have a script. No, in the case of the Moto X, we have a device that's not just like a middle of the road, mid-run device that the company's already had its big reveal. This is the phone that the company is coming back into visibility with.
Yeah, that just doesn't make sense to me.
And it doesn't look all that. It looks like they are sacrificing, a little bit of bombast in exchange for a philosophical statement that looks like it's going to land with a thud. Is that the point of your piece, Taylor? I mean, it looks like an HTC First from Motorola, almost.
Yeah, it does. It looks like a First or a Nexus 4. That's exactly what it looks like with colors. But the reason I say it's a victim of its own hype is it's not entirely Motorola's fault. It's part Motorola's fault for making this huge comeback, this big splash. This is the new Motorola, and we're making mid-range phones. That doesn't really speak to much of anyone anymore. It used to be nobody really cared. We'd go buy this phone because it was free. Now people are like, I want that S4 because it's great. It's got the best of everything. I want that HTC One because it's got the best of everything. So you've seen this context.
You've got everything that was Motorola, the Kevlar back, the big Motorola M. We know what a Motorola phone is. We know what it looks like. It's got a following. It's got people who acknowledge it and love it. And the new one ain't it. It's not the same thing anymore. So you're alienating all of those Motorola fans in the process.
So, Joe, that's a really good point. And I want to make clear that we haven't seen final hardware yet. Obviously, we've just seen leaked images of back covers and leaked whatever. But you're right. It does not resemble anything that Motorola was doing with its original design lineage, which makes sense because, of course, the company's been acquired by Google and they want to change the look. That's fine. But it is sad because normally, or maybe not normally, but sometimes when a company gets acquired and it changes its hardware design aesthetic, sometimes it's a good thing because what they were doing before wasn't working. It didn't look good. It was lame. And maybe I'm alone here, but Motorola was making stellar hardware, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that Kevlar on the back of the Razr. I loved the look of the Razr. I even loved the bulge on the initial Droid Razr. So, like,
I love the idea of the Max phones. Like,
absolutely.
Every phone should have a Max edition. Every single phone.
Completely agree.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But the other part that I wanted to make, or the other point that I wanted to make, was that part of the reason that this phone is going to be a victim of its own hype is the media, us, practically, because we've been spreading these rumors, or we haven't been, but we've been regurgitating rumors
It's okay, you can say it, Taylor. We're the problem. It's all right.
Yeah, we are the problem. Well, no, it's the truth. We've been regurgitating rumors since December, and they're pointing to this super phone, not necessarily in specification, but a super phone that you can customize. You can choose different processors and storage and RAM and plug and play with your own choice of specifications.
Yeah.
And that's not the first time that's actually happened. This has been done before, and it crashed and burned before it really ever got off the ground. I can't remember the name of the company, but they offered this service where it was like $900 you can make your own phone.
Right.
And the reason that fails, that model fails, it works in computers.
$900.
Well, the reason it fails not only in price for consumers, but in cost for manufacturing. There is no way to mass produce these customized phones because components in a phone that's small enough to fit in your pocket aren't just plug and play. You can't just plug it in. They're soldered and built into the motherboard of the phone, which is smaller than a credit card.
Right.
So it's
not feasible. Yeah, at this point. It may be in the future, but that's an idea that has not yet reached its feasibility point.
Yeah,
so,
when a processor is like a micro SD card slot or something.
Right.
Or a micro SD card.
Right. But the thing is, that was all wishful thinking.
That'd be cool.
Nobody ever really heard
this is why I should have been an engineer.
Leak. Nobody ever really heard a reputable leak that was going to be the case. That was this kind of like, we're all spitballing, like, wouldn't it be cool if this meant customization? Instead,
you know where
we
it
get
came from, right?
Convertible covers. What?
It all came from a Google Plus post from Guy Kawasaki.
Oh,
that is
really?
where everything came from. He said, what if you could choose like the hardware of your own phone or something like that? And people just blew it way out of proportion.
Yeah, because Guy, if you don't know, Guy works for Motorola, making them more visible, in addition to, just being like the biggest force on the internet ever.
He is awesome.
I met Guy once in person.
I met him once in person as well. Where'd you meet him, Joe?
I met him at, I think it was Mix 07, Mix 08. Microsoft Developer Conference out in Vegas. I almost shook his hand. And by almost, I mean he was like 300 people away from me, but I had my arm extended, and I think he saw me.
Well, you know what, Joe? I wish you...
If I were closer, I would shake that guy's hand.
I wish you would have been around when I met him, because as longtime listeners know, I sat next to Guy Kawasaki for an entire dinner and didn't know who he was until 55 minutes into the dinner. I mean directly next to him. I was such a noob.
I sat straight across from the U.S. Nokia president.
Really?
Sat across the table from him for about 2 hours and didn't even realize until he got up. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I know this guy.
Wait a minute.
I mean, I was talking to him the whole time and everything, and I'm like, wait a minute.
It's so funny. It's funny because as much as I love talking to people, sometimes I'm still so much better with devices than with people.
I'm terrible with people. I used to be great with people, and now I can't remember a name. I shake a hand, and by the time we're done shaking, I'm like, what's your name again?
Right.
Like 3 seconds, and I forget the name.
It's the same thing. You know what? Let's have a Pocketnow workshop.
I can't remember you.
We're gonna have a Pocketnow workshop. We're all gonna get together, and we're gonna learn. We're gonna relearn dealing with people interaction. It's gonna be fun.
Your name is Taylor. That's kind of like tailor made for golf. So I'm gonna remember you now.
See, get some mnemonic devices happening in your head. That's all you need.
Work.
Let's talk about Google Play Edition phones for a second, shall we? This is something that Taylor Martin was asking me about when you were off the air, Joe, and I was like, "Shut up! I'll tell you on the air." So I'm going to talk about it.
Shut up, stupid.
Taylor made a great piece a great video called 5 Reasons to Turn Your HTC One into a Google Play Edition. And, of course, the Google Play Edition HTC One being an HTC One with no Sense skin on it, just running stock Android. And that's a great video, and I was about to do it. I was actually about to try and do it with my extended loan HTC One here from Sprint. But instead, what happened was on my doorstep came a Google Play Edition HTC One. So thanks to
Also,
the
I
folks
hate
at HTC. Yeah, I'm going to be unboxing that later today. Obviously, it's not going to have many surprises in it, but I think it deserves an unboxing just because not a lot of people have seen it unboxed. So it is time to do that, and I'm very much looking forward to it because I, guys, haven't been on stock Android in my hand, like on a non-tablet device, since I broke my Galaxy Nexus on the boat last summer. Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to playing with that. And
if you had said that, I would have sent my Nexus 4 to you because I'm so charitable.
Thank you. I do appreciate that,
so
but
nice.
anything without LTE is I turn my nose up at as though it were asparagus. Or
Is that
some
why
other
I get all
offensive
these reviews
vegetable.
with Edge devices?
Yeah, because you're the new guy.
Well, and apparently I'm the Verizon guy.
Yeah, Joe's the Verizon guy in Utah. Anyway, but the point is, watch the video if you haven't already. If you have an HTC One and you want to make it a Google Play edition, Taylor,
There's a video for that.
I mean, yeah, how easy is it?
It's very easy. And
So
I will tell you.
You've got two videos, right, Taylor? You've got the five reasons why you want to do this, and then you've got the here's how you do it in 10 minutes video, right?
Yes, and today I'll be shooting another video on the subject, the final video on it.
Yeah, which is what?
How to return to Sense.
Yep,
So,
the other way. We're doing the
Yeah, and
whole
it's just
How to
coverage of
undo
it.
all that.
yes. I will say that flashing the Google Play Edition software on your HTC One, unlocking the bootloader, rooting, installing ADB and everything was easier than writing the script for the 5 reasons why to do it. That was really tough because I've explained it in an editorial. There are a lot of things about stock software that's just not it's not meant for some devices these days, because these devices, as I said long ago when these were announced, that the HTC One and the Galaxy S4 were built around Sense and TouchWiz.
Yeah.
They're not built around stock Android, so they're missing a lot of features. Yeah. Unlike your Nexus 4, which comes really without compromise in terms of your experience, that's setting aside your low storage and no LTE and stuff like that. But
yeah, now
you lose infrared, you lose all sorts of things.
If you do it yourself. Now, the ones that come from the Google Play Store as Google Play Editions are built with the kernel. Like the manufacturer has done a custom kernel for them, so that you still get Beats on the HTC One, for example.
Yeah, I still have Beats on mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they used the HTC released the kernel.
Yeah.
Otherwise it wouldn't be possible. So it's the same exact thing.
Oh, well, then I'm wrong.
It's not the first time.
Yeah, no, it's not. No, it's definitely not. Yeah. I don't know. We start getting to kernel level stuff. I'm but a lonely
talking about popcorn.
A lowly lieutenant. Yeah, I ain't no colonel.
Yeah, get some butter.
Let's move on before I talk about
chicken?
more things I don't know about. The HTC topic has not been exhausted yet. I want to talk about the HTC Desire 200 very briefly. Did you guys look at this cute little thing?
I just did. Oh my gosh. It is like a tiny little itty bitty HTC One X.
Well,
it's the HTC One Pebble.
Yeah, it's the HTC Veer. Like it's cute. So
it's the One X because it has the old button configuration and it's polycarbonate. Get out of here.
Hold up there, Chief. It's the One X. If the One X's eyebrow was from the HTC One, because it's got those machined holes up top above the HTC logo.
Okay, so
the
it's
HTC half X.
So wait a second. Hold on a second. Wait. If it's polycarbonate around back like the One X, then why does Tony say in his news piece about this? The back features an interesting texture a la Samsung Galaxy S4 and S4 Mini, because it doesn't look like hyperglaze to me. I don't get what he's saying there.
I think the texture, it looks dotted.
Oh, aesthetically. Yeah. Okay,
I can see that now that I'm looking at it. You look real close.
Oh, you got to look real close to see that. Okay.
Yeah. So if you guys haven't been out to the article, it published on
July
4th of July. Yeah. So
HTC
yesterday.
Desire 200. Yeah. Click the link. If you're listening to this on YouTube, this should be a reminder that you should click the description, because we got time codes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and this is very low end.
Well, with the specs, so we got 1
gigahertz single core processor, 512 megabytes of RAM,
3.5-inch screen, and Android ice cream sandwich. Oh shoot, there's Sense 4.0 too. Oh.
Android 4.0. That's so old now. That's like almost.
Well, not a few.
0.22 versions ago.
Well, no. How long ago did it come out?
Yeah, ICS came out what?
December of 2011.
Yeah, but that was almost January of 2012.
I like the way you think, Joe.
Point stands is still a year and a half old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nothing should ship with software that's more than like 3 months old.
Hold up,
It's
though.
got
Hold up.
to.
Think about what
has
the
got to.
desire.
Look at the
Right. Look at the spec sheet. You're not going to throw Jelly Bean on top of that, right?
Project
Actually,
Butter.
you know, yeah, Jelly Bean 4.1, I think that might do pretty good on it.
Yeah.
Really?
4.2.
Project Butter makes a big difference,
Yes, it does.
especially on phones that are kind of underpowered.
Hold up. No, you stop it. We're not gonna we're not gonna continue projecting this party line nonsense that Project Butter is a panacea for all of Android's problems. Because I was using my Nexus 7 last night, and I was like hashtagging some Instagram-ish or whatever, and we're going to talk about Instagram again in a second. And I was waiting for that thing so many times. I am so tired of the lag that is present on Jelly Bean.
Don't lump in the Tegra 3. Don't even do that.
Yeah.
Good point.
That's a
What
different
version of Jelly Bean is running on that Nexus 7?
Because of the Tegra
4.2.
processor? Or because it's, what, I'm running 4.2.2, I think, right?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Throw Jelly Bean 4.1 on that thing.
Right, but come on, right? Like Jelly Bean 4.1
Kernels and popcorn and
introduced
stuff.
Project Butter, exactly, right? And it's funny because I will gladly take the role of ignoramus here because a customer doesn't give a crap what
I know.
version of whatever is running. He's like, I want this to be smooth as anything. Oh wait, it runs Jelly Bean. Oh, I heard that's way smoother. They take it home. They're waiting 14 seconds for a friggin' app to like switch over, and maybe that's an exaggeration, but it felt like 14 seconds. So it's like, why can't we just have our Jelly Beans and eat them too? Is my question.
The problem is, Android before Jelly Bean wasn't better in performance, so why would Jelly Bean not be better? Because it is better. It's meant to be better.
I don't know.
Does that make sense?
And it doesn't. Nothing about what you have said makes sense. No, because Ice Cream Sandwich on my
Okay.
Galaxy Nexus ran quite well for a while.
Let
before
me
I shared
clarify
it.
this for you, okay, Michael? This is as
Please,
simple as
Joe.
I can
This
make
is why you're on the show because you're
More cores, more better. All right.
Yes.
Taylor.
So,
Go leave.
Ice Cream Sandwich was nice and pretty. And
It
then
was.
Jelly Bean 4.1 came out, and it took nice and pretty and made it nice and smooth. And then, especially when we're talking about some of the lower-end devices, like the Nexus 7, there's another flavor of Jelly Bean, and it's that earwax flavor one that comes from Bernie Bott's, and it's terrible.
Ew.
So not every Jelly Bean tastes good, and that's the case with the Nexus 7. When you go back down to 4.1 on the Nexus 7, which I know not a normal person's going to do,
Right.
but they still have that ROM sitting out there so you can still do it, and it's real easy. It's fast and buttery again. It's the 4.2 version of Jelly Bean that made the Nexus 7 slow down. So that's why I'm wondering, we have lower-end specs on this device, the Desire 200. I'm wondering, why couldn't we get the advantage of Jelly Bean, the Project Butter, and just put 4.1 on it rather than the Bernie Bott's earwax flavor 4.2?
It's a
Grass
solid
flavored
question.
Jelly Bean.
Because that would work. I mean, I would be much more willing to overlook an older Android version if it ran very smoothly. And of course, we have no idea how well things run on the Desire 200. We don't have one. This
Exactly,
is all
yeah.
leaked stuff. But you know what? It's funny. This is one of the first low-end devices that I've seen in a while that I actually
long
want to
time.
try out. Like, it's cool. It looks a little Frankenstein-y. I'm not saying the thing is pretty. It's kind of pretty
Yeah.
from the back, but then you're like, it's kind of a
like,
butterface, right?
we-
It's a little bit of a butterface.
Yeah, it's a butterface.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so let's just shift gears just a little bit here.
Please.
Android is still doing this. And I want to know, before I bias you with my opinion, what do you guys think about this? Apple is doing something entirely different with their quote-unquote low-end devices.
Which makes
If you
no
want
sense.
a low-end Apple, you get a 4S or maybe even
Yeah.
a 4.
Right, you could eat last year's phone.
Exactly. And it's nice because it runs the current version of the OS with, a few features that aren't there, which I wrote an article about not long ago. Shameless plug for that. But here you've got HTC now has to worry about a flagship phone and a low-end phone, so they're kind of splitting their attention.
Yep.
Why is Android doing that? Is it a good thing? Why or why not go?
Just use old devices as the mid-range and low-end phones.
Okay, so maybe that's a superior business model. I think that would be a much more boring world because I
Oh, it would.
love covering multiple devices because we need those variations in hardware because it is just a sea of slabs. I've said it before, but taking any normal person into a cell phone store, if you haven't done this, listeners, fellow Pocketnowians, whatever, take someone normal with you into a cell phone store and watch their reaction to this,
Someone normal.
to this. Well, it's true. To this sea of like slabs, and especially if it's an older person, if you can bring your parent in, where it's like, wow, yeah, these all look the same, is what I've gotten just time and time again. It's like, I don't know, what's the difference? They all look alike to me.
I like the blue one.
Right? Yeah, right.
That one's free.
Right. So
That one's free.
Oh, and that one's free? Well, I like the blue one anyway. No, you don't.
Exactly.
It's got a 500 megahertz processor in it and only half a gig of RAM.
I keep
I
hearing
don't know
about
what that
people,
means.
person after
Numbers.
person, and they're doing this. You know, Samsung is doing this. People are buying the Galaxy S3 in large numbers in my social circles right now because people's upgrades are coming up. It's the summertime or whatever, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm going to get that Galaxy S3 because it's $30, and so the Galaxy S4 is $150." It's like, wow, okay. I mean, I wouldn't recommend that, but all right, go for it. You know. So
The week before the Galaxy S4 was released for T-Mobile, my friend down the street got his wife a Galaxy S2, and he got the Galaxy S3, and got them at a really good deal because, well, the 4 is coming out next week, so you got to knock $50 off each one of them.
of course,
So, and they're happy with them.
right, and that's the reality. Yeah,
They do everything they need them to do.
I should qualify that. It's not that I don't recommend it because I actually said quite the opposite in my S4 versus S3 comparison. But it's still, I don't know. I never want to advocate somebody buying a generation old technology because of the pace this industry moves at.
Yeah.
But so, Joe, I think the diversity of the Android space speaks in this regard as well. Because even though you're right, it's not as common in the Android space because it is so much more busy. There is a manufacturer that's doing that. There's a manufacturer that's doing both. You know, Samsung is doing that with its premium Galaxy S stuff. But just in case you're the type that needs different hardware, here's 40 other Galaxy branded devices.
Yeah.
And this one's waterproof.
Right. And that one was, I really still like that Galaxy S4 Active. I will say that.
And this one takes zoom pictures. And this one, and they're nothing alike, but we're going to call them the same thing.
Yeah, they're all in the same family.
Yeah.
Those were just adopted.
I feel like maybe we're going somewhere we've been before. Shall we move on?
Let's do. I just wanted to cover that while we were looking at
that
this
was solid.
low-end Desire
Yeah,
200.
I loved your question. I was not complaining about your question. I'm just being mindful about your hard outage. I like that Taylor and I are the only ones who never have hard outs.
Oh, I don't have a hard out today. What are you talking about?
I had one at 11:01. I just didn't take it.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Hey, Taylor,
Hey.
I'm going to tell you a story.
Once upon a time.
I know where
in
this is
Super
going.
Carolina.
I was
Before you start.
using. No, I'm just going.
Before you start.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like this entire podcast so far, I've played the part of Ali. I really have.
Like Muhammad
I really
Ali.
haven't-
I was going to say.
No, Ali from Family Guy. We were talking about this.
Oh, that's right.
It's gonna rain.
Taylor, give
Like
us
the
your quick
entire-
pass on this. Things are bad.
Yeah, the entire time I'm like,
Thanks, Ollie. Ollie
I'm
Williams.
like popcorn and butter. Yeah, Like, I've been doing that the whole time. I just realized it.
It's nice. It's good. Well, I was on Instagram recently, and I was scrolling through the feed, and I came across a picture of a phone or something like that. And this happens because I follow other outlets who on Instagram and blah 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 blah. But this one was from Taylor. And you know what's funny? I didn't even put it together because my brain was in like speeding the feeds kind of mode where I wasn't really critically thinking. I was just watching stuff go by, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty. But I was like, oh,
So you were in the John.
I was not. I was
Okay.
not,
Picture of a
sir.
phone?
My brain may have been in the loo, but I was not. No,
Sure, I didn't share a picture of a phone. I didn't.
whatever it
Get out.
was. I don't care what it was. It was something.
Raindrops
It was,
on my car.
Your lunch.
Yeah, it was
We'll
something.
say your lunch.
It was something weak. No. It was actually really cool. And I was like, oh, Taylor never posts anymore. That's cool. And I didn't even think about your like vendetta against Instagram. And so when you wrote a piece that said why I might come back to Instagram, it suddenly clicked. I was like, oh right. And then I looked up your profile, and I didn't realize, Taylor, that you're not just someone who said no to Instagram and never went on. You're someone who spent a lot of time on Instagram and then quit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I spent every day. I'd share a picture almost every day, or 2 or 10.
So this is to me like now many will disagree with me. This is to me like the story of the straight A student who's a good boy, and then he like falls in with the bad crowd, and starts getting Fs, starts getting held
Maybe it
back.
was the guy who had Fs and then he started hanging with the good crowd and then went back to Fs.
I don't think that's right. I don't think that's the story I'm telling.
And he wears a fancy hat.
Yeah, right, exactly. He changes schools and gets a hat. What's the deal with that?
Yeah. There are no pictures of me in a hat, I don't think, on Instagram. Well, there might be one or two.
But here's my question. Why might you return to Instagram after all this time, despite the fact that it makes a fun headline? And also, thank you, by the way, for sharing my image in your title letter. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
No, I quit. Let me start by why I quit.
Mm-hmm.
I quit at the same time everybody was quitting because of the new terms and conditions. Oh, we're selling your pictures to ad companies or for ads or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly what it was. But they were saying, hey, we're updating our terms and conditions. And at the very end of it, it was revealed that nothing really changed all that much. They were doing exactly what they were before, and everybody freaked out over it because they made it, I guess, a little more transparent, the terms and conditions. Whatever. I didn't care about that. I really don't care if somebody sells my image for advertising. By all means, I think that just spreads my reach a little bit if somebody recognizes me. Cool. Hey, whatever. But I had this epiphany one day. I woke up, like everybody was jumping ship, and I'm like, why would they be jumping ship? Why would they quit Instagram if they love it so much over something small like this? So it hit me. I'm like, I've been talking about camera quality, just hounding it for 3 years now. Cameras on phones suck. These suck. There's at least 2 that are great, but the rest suck, all the time, just talking about how they are terrible. And then I would share every picture I took to Instagram,
which automatically reduces the quality drastically. In exchange.
It's the lowest common denominator. Everybody can see the same crappy pictures, and you don't have to worry about people who have good camera phones.
Boom.
Yeah, that's a very true point. But the point was, I'm sitting here talking about how camera quality needs to be improved, and then there I am sharing these pictures as 612 by 612 squares with filters, and they look like utter garbage.
You felt like a hypocrite.
Yeah, I did, and I'm
so you had to choose one. You had to stop talking about camera quality, or you had to quit Instagram.
Yeah, and I was like,
your choice.
What? I'm done here, and I went to find an alternative. I jumped to Flickr really quickly and decided that wasn't going to work.
Yeah, I'm already asleep. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the app looks great, and the pictures look great on Flickr, but there was just nobody on Flickr, and it was boring.
It's lame.
And I just went to sharing everything I wanted to share, every picture. I would share it 3 times. Once to Facebook, once to Twitter, once to Google+. And I'm just like, oh my
so
God.
convenient. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm actually writing a little bit about this today. I've got an editorial coming up. Do you want a social app, one social app to rule them all? Kind of one, like a family. But
well, see, we're going to look forward to that. I like. So it's nice to get your perspective on this, and listeners, you should click the story to read Taylor's view on this. And what of Joe? Because I think Joe is a member of the class that I talked about before. Correct me if I'm wrong. Have you never been on Instagram?
I've looked, and ironically, I've looked. The majority of my searches have all been like #Boston for some reason. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
why.
no, those are fun to do. Yeah.
So, but no, I don't know that I've ever posted anything on Instagram. I may be wrong. I might have experimented a little in my youth and just don't remember. But
it's all right, man. You didn't inhale. Just say it.
Forgive us for the youthful indiscretions. But no, I've been out to Flickr. Whatever. Most of my sharing, I'm not a big photo sharing guy, but most of what I do on Google Plus, just because of all the cool stuff that they do with your images and the automatic backup and automatic upload and blah blah blah.
Right.
And now with the all the super awesome filters that they announced at Google I/O that make your crappy pictures, which I'm a programmer, guys. I'm not a photographer. I don't know what looks pretty, except my wife.
Aww.
She's pretty, but yeah, I can't tell. I honestly cannot tell a good picture from a crappy looking picture. So all this stuff that Mr. Casper Tech's talking about over there, okay, I guess.
You are at sea. Well, see,
Yeah,
that's good to
so-
know. And the reason I ask this is because it's not just because because I love Instagram and whatever, but Instagram was a powerful force before, and then Facebook acquired it for $1 billion, as everybody knows. And we're starting to see some of the modifications that they're making to it, and by and large, I think it's a success story so far. And the TOS discussion is another one entirely. But the feature additions and the usability improvements are so subtle at the moment, and they're so nice. And
There are slight refinements. There's been a lot of improvements since I left and came back.
Exactly, and I think it's a success story in so far in terms of that. And I think it's going to become more relevant as time goes on, which is why we keep talking about it. It's not just because I'm a fanboy and I want to talk about this thing. I think it's important.
So why did I come back, though?
Yeah.
It's
Why
hard
did
to
you come
explain.
back?
Well, there were two reasons. There was one that was kind of the major reason. I haven't been using Vine a lot, but I really like it, and I like how much penetration has gotten in such a short time, and how engaging it is. I really like sharing short little video snippets. It's great, and people have been trying to do it for 2 or 3 years now, and nobody's been able to successfully do that until Vine. And I didn't share a lot to Vine, but I would scroll through and watch stuff because there are a lot of funny Vines out there. And then Instagram obviously added their video component. And the problem with Vine is I'd share a couple things and I'd get like one like. And, I spent most of my time looking, not sharing. And with Instagram, there are already 150 million monthly active users that are already there sharing videos. It was just kind of like an organic overnight thing that happened. And I'm sitting here thinking, I already use 3 social apps, Twitter, Google+, and Facebook. And I don't want
Don't
a
need another one.
4th. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Well,
and I
at
think
least
more people are going to be thinking that way going forward.
Well, at least a 4th or a 5th. If I go back to Instagram, then I'm looking at 5 apps: Vine, Instagram, Twitter, Google+, and Facebook. And that's like mind-numbing. And, I hopped back
Social
on Instagram.
overkill at that point.
Yeah. So I hopped back on Instagram for a minute, and I'm like, you know what? There's just so much going on here. I'm missing out because there's just a lot that my friends are sharing to Instagram that I just don't see. And, I'm a very social guy, at least online. And, yeah. And I was like, you know what? This isn't so bad. I'm gonna rethink this. And then I went out that same night, I went out, and I was at a bar, and basically the short story is I helped crash a bachelorette party.
Yeah.
Okay, we didn't really crash it. We just hung out with the bridesmaids and the bride-to-be. And they were taking pictures, and they were like, yeah, you guys are awesome, yeah. And they took pictures, and they were like, let's tag you on Instagram. I'm like, I don't use Instagram. And every single one of them just stopped and looked at me like I just shot somebody in the face. They were like, what? I'm like, sorry, don't mean to be.
Did they know what you
here,
do?
but
Did they know that you were a tech blogger?
they didn't at the time. They did by the time I left.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Taylor, and I'm on the internet.
Well, yeah, it
y'all know
always
me from
comes
the
up in
internet?
conversation.
It does, because everyone carries a phone. That's why.
Everyone carries a phone, but also they ask me for my number, and I pull out like a phone. I'm like, oh, and I put it back in my pocket and pull out the right one.
Another phone's like, hey,
And they're
what,
just
you
like, wait a
carry
minute,
more
what?
than one
What just
phone?
happened?
What's
What do you
going
do? Are you a drug dealer? And
Oh, yeah.
Depends
So
who you got.
so they asked me that. They're like, why don't you use Instagram? And I tried to explain it, and their eyes glossed over, and they went back to the bar and got some more drinks, and I'm like, whatever. So I went back to the same bar a couple nights later. I was hanging out with my friends, and the exact same thing happened without a bachelorette party. We were talking to a bunch of people. They took a picture. They're like, hey, let's tag you on Instagram. I'm like, I don't use Instagram.
Right, and
they're just like,
jaws
what?
at the floor. Right.
Yeah, it's like Mean Girls. They just look at you like,
Well, it's like what happened with MySpace, and then it's what could happen with Facebook, and it's like what's happening with Twitter, and I mean, it's
And as shallow as
it's
that
growing.
sounds.
No, but you want to be a part of the
sh-
conversation.
Well, a part of the conversation, and actually it helps meet people, as stupid as that sounds. And the comparison I made is you can't tag someone on Facebook if you share a picture with a stranger. You can't say, I'm here with this person that I just met, unless you friend them first.
Totally. Oh,
And on Twitter, you're not going to just be like, hey, I'm at this bar with this person I just met. Hey, you're not going to do that.
No, I unwittingly proved it provided backup to your point here. Yesterday, my girlfriend and I were on one of the Boston Harbor Islands, which has a lot of abandoned World War II infrastructure, and we were in this like old casemate with peeling paint and crumbling concrete, and it was nuts. And a lot of people had done graffiti on the wall, and my girlfriend was just enamored with this one piece of graffiti where it's like an angel walked on this island, an angel named Morgan Freeman. And so my girlfriend, like, cracking up, she insists that I take a photo of this thing. I'm like, whatever, this isn't that funny to me, but okay, I'll take a photo. And I'm going through photos that are hashtagged Boston Harbor Islands last night on Instagram. Someone had taken the exact same photo and uploaded it. So I started a conversation. I was like, oh, hey, I took this photo too. And I made a friend out of a stranger who had been on the same, like, island as I had that same day, which would not have been possible on Facebook. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Whoa, the same day too?
The same, like 4 hours apart. Yeah.
Wow. That's creepy.
Isn't it
yeah,
crazy?
So Instagram forces your social life into the meat space. It does. that is exactly what it does.
Oh,
and
first use of meat space on the podcast.
Yes.
It took
I had to
51
throw it in there.
episodes. Thank you.
I had to throw it in there. But yeah, it does.
Do
and
we have
that's
a list
one
of
reason I'm
things we
back.
want to say that I haven't gotten memo on yet?
No.
I want to say gobbledygook,
Yeah.
and that one's already ticked off just now.
You can also
Gobbledygook.
we can say razzmatazz. You guys want to talk awful Discovery Channel shows? Hey,
So yeah, that's why.
So
and
let's wrap it up on Instagram.
the funny thing was, like, I think the first comment that I got on that, not on the site, but on some social channel, somebody said, "This is a media or a tech site, not your personal diary," or something like that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
I
I felt kind of shallow about it because I'm succumbing to peer pressure, basically.
Right, but that's okay because sometimes that's important.
Yeah, and everybody's doing it.
That's right. Everybody cool. No, so
But
anyway,
yeah, I
there's
just
a
don't
larger
want another
philosophical
app.
question about the popularity of platforms and about how that plays into it. I mean, that's the thing. And we're going to get a ton of hate in the comments on this because I feel like Instagram stories are the ones most likely. They're kind of like wireless charging stories where it's
Yeah.
like no matter how cool a wireless charger is, there will always be 50,000 people who are like, what's the point? Just plug it in with the wire. And it's like, shut up, just leave. Shut
It's
up,
not
shut up,
truly
shut up.
wireless.
Just in short, they're wrong.
Yeah,
They don't know.
right, exactly.
It's
and I'm
not really
saying it's
wireless
wrong to
because you
hate.
still have to plug it in.
I'm not saying it's wrong to hate Instagram. If you hate Instagram, that's for a good reason. That's fine. If you hate Instagram just because it's like, no, I don't like socialization. Okay, fine. Then stop leaving comments.
Go back to
Anyway,
be a hermit. Go back to your little hermit cave.
right. Oh, it's-
And
Get your ham radio, and
see, that's nice. See, now
the final
that's me being funny. I'm not trying to offend ham radio people.
of course.
The final point is one that Jaime made. He said having separate apps for photo sharing and video sharing is ridiculous, and it really is.
That's a solid point.
Yep. So that's what it comes down to. At the very end, it's about having video sharing and photo sharing in the same app because that obviously just makes sense. If you can share video, fine. Please just throw pictures in there too. Like, why?
Yeah, and maybe they will.
Whatever.
We'll see.
Whatever. So that's the end of that.
Well, good.
Well, I'll elaborate on it a little more in
In
my
a post,
editorial.
forthcoming post. Good.
Yeah.
And that's the end until later.
And that's the end until later on this afternoon.
Story of my life. I'm going to bed, Twitter, and
And then 4
20
hours
minutes
later, you're still there. I know. I was
30
bothering you
tweets
about
later.
that.
Oh,
Hey, so
it's every night.
I want to know about something. I want to know about science and radio waves and things that do not relate to social media for the moment. I want to know from our friend Joe Levi, the Android guy, about a question presented to us by King, I believe, in the podcast email several weeks back. And the headline basically verbatim reproduces the email. Why is Wi-Fi so much worse on smartphones than on laptops and computers? I love this question because I posed a similar question to Joe a year ago about where I was like, "Hey Joe, my Wi-Fi is sucking on my phone. Why is that?
I don't have enough
it's better."
GBs. That must be it.
Yeah, is that right? Do I need to get more MHZs or what?
Yeah, that's exactly it. You got to go down further in the alphabet for your Wi-Fi to get better. Is it Wi-Fi A or B?
It's good. Just lost everyone from Taylor's home state. No, so
They don't know what Wi-Fi is, so just keep talking.
Joe breaks it down succinctly into a couple different categories like output power, antenna size, and number of antennas. But before we get the kind of 10,000-foot view on that from Joe, I want to ask you guys: Do you also notice this? That
Oh, yeah.
Wi-Fi performance on smartphones is significantly less impressive than on larger devices?
Absolutely. And there is a a software component to that as well, where Wi-Fi might toggle off if your screen goes off or something to that extent.
Yes.
So there is that.
I
But
didn't talk about that aspect in the article, but you are absolutely right.
Yeah, and in Android 4.3, the leaked ROM that was out there somewhere, somebody found that there is a software setting in Wi-Fi settings in the advanced menu that allows you to absolutely keep Wi-Fi on 24/7.
Cool.
So there is that. But
That's
go ahead.
been around in a lot of Android builds, and I don't know if it's like an AOSP thing or whatnot, but you can and have been able to, unless
You can
your
set it to
OEM
never
has turned
sleep.
it off. Yeah, you just tell it never to turn off.
Yeah, but this one, it's changed. I don't know if a functionality changed, but it says always on or something like that. I don't know. I don't know if it's any different, but
That
there is a
bears
change.
some investigation, because
Yep.
I'm wondering if it isn't just never sleep reworded to be more friendly and understandable.
It might be. I don't know.
So yes, the biggest thing, and I kind of put this more towards the bottom of the article because honestly, it's the most boring of them all. But we talk about all kinds of stuff on the podcast. The biggest thing is your frequencies, and that gets to the question that you were asking, Michael. Wi-Fi operates in both 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, and that is, a lot of people think that that's just one thing, but it's an entire spectrum. And to get really super geeky and try and tone it down to the level that an actor could understand.
Wow. Wow. Ooh.
So you've got, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but you've got a bunch of different frequencies in both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. Those are just kind of the reference marks that we use to talk about them. And you need to look at them as if they're a highway. You've got your road that's in front of your house and it has 2 lanes. You've got the road, the feeder street that gets you from your neighborhood out to the highway that's maybe 4 streets. And then you got the highway that's 10 streets, lanes. Go back, replace all those streets with lanes. You got this one that's 10 lanes wide. Well, the more lanes you have, the faster the traffic can flow, and the more stuff can get through. And that's both throughput and data rate and blah, 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 blah. The problem you run into when you're at home...
What you're saying is that if I have more taps, I can get more beers.
I'm looking for a Seymour Butts. So in your house, if you were trying to get the same amount of people that go on the freeway down the side streets, like there's a wreck on the freeway, for example, and they all have to be diverted off onto the side streets, it's going to be very slow and very clogged up because there's so many people there.
Well, yeah, it's the same bandwidth thing as we talk about in cellular. I mean,
so that's what's happening here with Wi-Fi. 2.4 gigahertz is the Wild West. It's where everybody is.
Right.
Keyboards and mice use it. Bluetooth uses it. Bluetooth keyboards and mice use it. Bluetooth headsets, Wi-Fi, smartphones, laptops, tablets. Everybody uses 2.4, and very few people use 5 gigahertz right now.
Still? And it's funny because 5 gigahertz isn't all that new. I mean, it's been around for years.
I know. In fact, 802.11a, the very first Wi-Fi to come out, and somebody's going to correct that in the comments, but for this topic, for this conversation, it's the first one.
For the sake of the argument.
Yes, that was 5 gigahertz.
Wow.
And businesses were using that primarily. It was faster than 802.11b, or it could be faster than 802.11b. In practice, it didn't turn out to be. 802.11b was 2.4 gigahertz, and it was slow. And the difficulty you had there was at work you couldn't use your home equipment, and at home you couldn't use your work equipment, and it was a pain in the neck, and they didn't have these dual function cards, at least not that much. Way back then, I worked at an ad agency that we had 3Com as our client, and we did a whole educational thing on why you couldn't use one in one place and one in the other. And then they pushed a rev that made it possible and kind of negated the whole campaign. So it was awesome. But that's the biggest deal, is it's so noisy. There's so much traffic going on there that for your stuff to get through, you have to bump up the power so that your signal is louder than everybody else's signal.
Right. And you're able to do that better with a device that actually has more power.
Yeah, so that's called the sound floor, and if you look at, you can get
the noise floor, right?
Cool stuff. Yeah, the noise floor. You can get all kinds of cool apps that show you everybody else out there, and just draw a line across where everyone else is, and look where your signal is.
Yeah.
The closer your signal is to that noise floor, the slower things are going to be, the more spotty your connection's going to be, and that gets to your next point, which was the power output of your smartphones and even tablets is a lot lower than it is on laptops, and especially desktops that are connecting via Wi-Fi. So the output, the volume, if you will, the signal strength coming out of those smaller devices is a lot closer to that noise floor than if you were on a laptop or a desktop.
And that's by virtue of the fact that your laptop or desktop is just physically larger with more power available, whether it's from a wall or from a larger battery.
Right, a large battery that gets you more power, so you're not as battery constrained. They usually also have larger antennas and more antennas, which
that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, a lot of people don't equate antennas to power, but you can go back to ham radio because it's an excellent example. You can, with the right antenna, transmit a signal entirely around the world on half a watt of power.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the right antenna and matching that to what you're trying to do. Now, of course, that's different frequencies than we're talking about here, so nobody say, well, why can't I get Wi-Fi across the street? It's different, but the antenna is vitally important, and antennas are kind of second thoughts when you're trying to cram them inside of a smartphone.
It's because
there's just not much space in there.
They're vanishing from the public consciousness as well, because we haven't seen physical antennas on smartphones or on phones, period, in, about 6 years, probably?
Yeah.
You remember the extendable dipoles that you used to pull out and lock into place, and it was like, yay, my antenna's up. I'd see people talking on the phone like, I can't hear you. I'm like, you got to extend your antenna, bro. Come on, it's 2004.
I have a sticker on the inside. That's supposed to be a super
the signal boosters, yes. Very prevalent in Virginia Beach.
I had way too much fun with the Optimus G Pro, the Korean version with the foot-long antenna on it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I neglected to mention the TV tuner antenna.
Yeah. I'd just walk up and I'd walk around and have the antenna extended, and then you could swivel it around and stuff. So I was swiveling it around and talking.
Yeah.
People are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying to get the signal.
What phone is that?
Let me close out the Wi-Fi conversation, Joe, just by asking for a 1-minute rundown on what makes 802.11ac, our new friend, so much better.
The biggest deal there, in addition to the fact that it's just the next progression, it's got better protocols. They've learned lessons and made improvements with the next version, so it's just going to be better all around. But the biggest thing is 802.11ac is going to be pushed almost exclusively in the 5 gigahertz spectrum, so you're going to have a lot less traffic there to begin with. It's faster, it's got better collision correction, error correction, all that fun stuff. So you're going to have better speed, you're going to have a less noisy environment in which to talk, and ultimately it's just going to be an awful lot better all around.
Awesome. Thank you very much for closing out our Android discussion on a scientific note, Joe Levi. This is why I wish you were on the podcast more. It's
so do I.
So do I. It's difficult. It's difficult because I try and run this stuff sometimes, but they just didn't teach me as much in actor school. So I need my science officer. Listen, I want to go from talking about Android to talking about a different platform. Is everybody excited about that?
No, absolutely yes.
I knew the negator would come out for that one. Hey, BlackBerry 10. We've had some interesting news come out of BlackBerry recently, some sad news. They are not making as much money as they should be. They are not shipping as many BlackBerry 10 devices as they should be, and so on. And it's just been just a big old cloud of FUD over BlackBerry recently, and Taylor Martin wrote a piece. I know you're all surprised. Asking
Doom
the
and
question,
Doom and gloom.
does BlackBerry stand a chance anymore? Taylor's position, no.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, I wrote this editorial not focusing on the business side because there are so many different variables there that I really don't care about, and most other people don't either.
Sure.
I don't care about what revenue BlackBerry is posting. I don't care what kind of profit they're making or losses they're posting, rather. I don't care about any of that because that doesn't matter. The company is big enough to where they can pull out of this if they do the right thing.
Right.
They can. That is a fact. But no, I was a huge BlackBerry fan for the better part of 6 years. Used them day in and day out. I used probably over 30 different BlackBerries. And I loved them. I had so many of them, and I used them. And in my spare time, I made themes. I was as much about Android today as I was.
Yeah, we know we know what you were saying there. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know the words that are coming out of my mouth.
Yeah, words are hard.
Yeah, difficult.
Words and things.
Why do you even write on the internet, Taylor?
Yeah, right. I've gotten so many comments. I could do your job better. Yeah. Please.
It's always fun.
Please show me.
Go ahead.
So I finally moved away from BlackBerry. Long after the iPhone came around, my first Android phone was the HTC. What was it? Doesn't matter. Well, I'm just saying, like, that's when I really started to get away from BlackBerry. It was the Sprint Hero, the HTC Hero.
HTC Hero.
Oh yeah. So I went to that, and from there it was like 30 different Android phones, and I kind of slowly started getting out of BlackBerry, but I always loved them. I always wanted them to come back and really just wow me. And that's what I was hoping for from BlackBerry 10, as well as pretty much every single person that switched and did the same exact thing I did, who reluctantly got rid of their BlackBerry. And I was really looking forward to it. And then when the Q10 and Z10 were announced, I was like, it's not that great. I really don't care. Doesn't really move me. And then people started getting their Q10s, and I got a little bit of nostalgia, and I had to try it. Mm-hmm. And I did. And I've been using it for a couple weeks, off and on, not really hardcore because there's not really a lot to do with it. And the point of the point is they really haven't done much of anything. It's been 2 years since their last major update, right? So from BlackBerry 7 to BlackBerry 10.
Wait, what's your question? Like 2 years from their last major update? What, from 6 to 7?
No, from 7 to 10. Wasn't that close to 2 years?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
I mean, it was a long time. And I'm thinking they have to have something great up their sleeve. They have to be doing something awesome. And this entire time, all they really did was play catch-up, and they didn't do it in a really compelling fashion. They were just kind of like, we're going to throw this together and hope this works.
Yeah, we got to get something out there right now to stay relevant, and let's hope that it works.
I could totally understand that if it took them 6 months or a year even. But the fact that they delayed it a year and still really didn't bring anything forward. I mean, they brought forward other people's software, Scalato's camera software. I don't know what to say. It's just, I've used it, and it's not BlackBerry. It's not the BlackBerry I knew. It's not the BlackBerry I loved. The one thing I did love was the universal inbox. I could get notifications for everything in one place. And it's different from a notification shade because when you read it, it's still there.
Totally different.
You've got a chronological order of everything that ever happens on your phone.
Well, you can still do that in BlackBerry 10. They ported that to 10. Yeah.
But Hub is not the universal inbox. It's not.
In what way?
It's not the same thing.
It is the same thing.
No, it's
exactly the same thing, except that it sucks to manage multiple messages right now. They need to update that, and they need to up its performance because it's a little sluggish. But otherwise, it is the universal inbox.
No, it's not the same.
You hit T to go to the top, you hit B to go to the bottom. What more do you want?
M to mark all as red.
No, agreed. Mark all as red needs to be there. But so before we get to, I was just pulling your chain about that a little bit. But listen, BlackBerry Hub I like a lot. It's probably my favorite part of BlackBerry 10. Now, I spoke with BlackBerry last week, And
Where's
The
that interview?
entire company.
I
He
spoke
stood
with
on the roof.
yeah, I did.
Hey, where's that interview, Michael?
So here's the thing. Here's the problem.
Where is it? Where is
Okay,
it?
so I want to tell you who I spoke with first. I spoke with Don Lindsay, who is the VP of the BlackBerry User Experience, and Gary Clausen, the principal architect, and incidentally, the guy who basically brought BBM into being almost a decade ago. So I talked to some great guys, and this interview was facilitated by BlackBerry's excellent PR team. And man, I had a great time. And we spoke for about 45 minutes about how they did build BlackBerry 10, and particularly about the contributions the Astonishing Tribe made to the effort. Because that was kind of the thrust of the whole thing. BlackBerry, if you don't remember, listeners, BlackBerry bought a company called the Astonishing Tribe, which did some amazing work in UI for Android, principally for Android, but
for a lot of different platforms.
Yeah, but most of the stuff that's on their site right now was what they did for Android.
Yeah, but there was a infographic, about all the stuff they'd done, and they had we lost Joe again.
All right. Well, we keep talking. He'll come back. So the Astonishing Tribe was and basically an amazing design house, and BlackBerry RIM at the time bought them. And when they integrated them, there was a lot of these doom and gloom stories as tend to happen when mergers happen, where it's like, the Astonishing Tribe just lost all these people because of the merger, and is there any brain power left? And so I was coming into this interview kind of asking, is that true? I mean, did the Astonishing Tribe, is it a shell of its former self? What's up? And of course, predictably, the answer from BlackBerry, regardless of whatever the truth actually is, was always going to be no. It's like, things are fine. But I didn't get the sense that I was getting spinned. I didn't get the sense that I was being just told what I wanted to hear. The impression that I got was that not only were there a lot of people in that the former Astonishing Tribe office. So I don't remember what they call the office. So whatever they call the office, they're hiring, they're expanding that office. They're not collapsing it. And they're moving, Gary Clausen is moving over there. He's moving to an entirely different country. He's uprooting his entire family to head the effort over there. And so I get the sense that refining the BlackBerry 10 UI is of crucial importance to BlackBerry. It's not an afterthought.
That's of crucial importance to pretty much the entire thing, the whole project.
It is. Because
it's not that great.
Right, but you know what used to happen with BlackBerry when they were called RIM is that this very obvious truth would surface, and everyone inside the company would be like, no, it's fine. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. So they're much more self-aware now. I think that they are...
Well, they have to be.
Of course they have to be.
They have sales numbers to back that up now. I'm just
you mean
saying. Yeah. To back up, this isn't working.
To back up, they gotta.
So the
make
point is,
better.
I do want to talk about BlackBerry itself a little bit more, but I want to say that this interview was awesome. And you're never going to read it, listeners, due to a problem that may be obvious, whose source may be obvious at this point. That interview doesn't exist in a written form because of a user error, and it was my fault. I lost the recording of the interview, so I couldn't.
I don't understand how to save files on my desktop.
I want you to leave the country. I want you to go work for BlackBerry overseas. So,
when I was in high school and college, my dream job, and I swear you can ask anyone who knew me then, my dream job, my single goal in life was to be an engineer for BlackBerry.
Yeah.
And I abandoned it.
Well, it's probably a good thing to do.
Peace. Yeah. But the point that I wanted to make, that I made in this editorial, was that there's just no reason for me, even someone who wants to use BlackBerry, deep down inside I want to use it again. There's no reason for me to use it. And it's not just the app ecosystem. The UI is not fun or easy to navigate. There are so many inconsistencies and different things throughout the UI that it's just kind of like, what? Why is this here? Why?
It needs a fair amount of refinement, yes.
Yeah, and the comment you get all the time is, why don't you just port some Android apps to it? Because they don't work that well. They work horribly. Depending on what you get, they work some they're trash.
Yeah, and
honestly.
I'll be honest. In my review, I only tried one or two ported Android apps just to see if they worked right, because I hated being inside them, because they're 2.3 apps. Like they look horrible, they feel horrible, and it won't be interesting to me until I can run some Jelly Bean apps on BlackBerry 10 and see how that works. And thankfully, we don't have that much longer to wait.
Yeah. Also, I installed Plume. I ported Plume over because all the Twitter clients on Android, BlackBerry, except for maybe Black, that one's pretty good. But all the other ones are just kind of like, meh.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to pay for an app on BlackBerry that I'd probably only use for a couple weeks. So I ported Plume over, and an ad took up like half the screen. That wouldn't go away. So
Yeah.
there's that.
So we will see what develops. I basically wanted to say that I'm sorry we lost the interview, but we're obviously still actively following what BlackBerry is doing. I don't think we'll get a Q5, but
I'm sorry I had to write another doom and gloom BlackBerry article. I didn't want to, but I felt that I really needed to, because I'm a longtime BlackBerry fan, and I'm one of the few that's still rooting for the company. And I don't see how using BlackBerry 10 and moving forward with what they've got right now will work.
I will say this, that though I have enjoyed my time with the Q10, and though I really haven't been able to put it down, and when I do type on it, I feel better. Most of that is the keyboard. And the OS, although there are some really infectious things to it, like the swipe up, and there's some echoes of WebOS I really love, and I continue to love the hub. For me personally, I can't carry it as a DD solo. Most of that's because of Instagram and Pebble, I'll be honest, but also that I would like it to be more refined. And thankfully, it looks like, despite their awful numbers so far, they're going to have some time to refine it. And we'll see how it goes. Joe, do you have any interest in or feelings about BlackBerry before we move on?
I just have two questions. First, is President Obama still using a BlackBerry? Or did he switch to something else?
I think he's probably... that's the problem. President Obama switched, and then BlackBerry fell apart. Thanks, Obama.
There you go.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if they let him actually keep his BlackBerry. I think they had him switch to something similar.
They gave him that awful Windows Mobile, like, the hand
security,
scanner.
with the fingerprint scanner and all that.
The thing the waiters carry around in Canada. Yeah.
So he doesn't leave it in the bathroom on Air Force One?
Right. But then he was able to do something else. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the second question was, this seems like a rebirth, like Windows Mobile to Windows Phone, where it's not really an iterative improvement. It's a rebirth of the platform.
Yeah.
Microsoft is seeing how difficult that is right now, and their numbers are not all that great. I mean, they're making improvements, sure, but with BlackBerry doing the same thing, I sit back and I scratch my head, and I just wonder why some of these companies do this. BlackBerry, to me, was always about the keyboard. It was always about being able to get down and get business done in the past. And the new one is not so much.
It feels like a mix match of different things.
Yeah, they're trying to be something that they're not, which, yes, you have to improve. Yes, you have to expand. Yes, you have to do all this. But you can't do so at the... Is Apple ever going to get rid of their home button? No, it's there. That's core to the device. You have to have that because the whole thing is built around it. If they get rid of that, they're not iPhone anymore. It's something else, and I think that's what BlackBerry's done. Focus on what you're good at and what everybody likes you for, and not what you think people want.
I think that's good advice sometimes, Joe, but that changes when suddenly what you're good at doesn't matter anymore. It's kind of like being the maker of old clipper ships models. It's like, man, there was a market for these once, and now, or better yet, like TV repair shops, right? Or any of these old retail outlets where it's like, there's down the road from my house, there's a shoe repair store right next to a sewing machine repair store. And it's like, these are two different outlets serving two very, very niche things. And it's like, how are you still in business?
Yeah.
This is something along those lines.
Shoes are no longer something you repair. They're disposable. They're disposable. Everything's disposable.
I repair my shoes.
You do?
Joe, you live in Utah. You are an exception.
No, I'm even an exception for people who live in Utah. No, I literally... I get Doc Martens, I get Red Wings, and the soles will go out in them on occasion, or I'll pull a seam, or the stitching will come out, and for $20 I go in there and the guy just soups it up, and now I have super shoes.
Well, I wish I could find somebody to fix my Dexters because they don't sell them anymore, and I've been wearing them. I've been wearing these loafers for almost 10 years now.
Dexters are nice shoes.
Dude, and I wear them probably 80-90% of the time, and I have for 10 years. I mean, they just don't wear out. The soles are getting kind of thin, but I can't find replacements for them.
Now,
just go to your local shoe repair shop.
It doesn't have
this is the next series.
It's not a sewn
next Pocketnow series.
Yeah.
What shoes are we wearing?
Or
take it in anyway, and I bet he'll be able to do something for you. Say, what can you do? These are my favorite shoes. What can you do?
Yeah.
It's worth the trip.
Yeah. The heels are fine, just the ball of the foot's wearing out, and there's no seam. They're glued.
I care about this. I do care.
I know
about
you
this.
do.
Yeah,
I know
care
you
about
do.
this so hard. Let's talk Windows
RC
Phone.
airplanes and stuff.
I don't
you're
like
happy
them as
again.
much as ships. I mean, let's talk about RC submarines. No, let's talk about Windows Phone.
Oh, can we not?
Yes.
I'm kidding. It's EOS, so I care.
This is important, right? Because we've talked about the EOS before, but usually when we talk about the EOS, it's Tony on the podcast, and we start talking about the PureView 808, which he has experience with, and none of us do. And we don't really get to Joe's or Taylor's opinion on stuff. Well, Taylor always finds a way to contribute his opinion. But
one way or another,
we've had some new leaks.
Want it or not.
I want to say that this is like the new contender for world's worst kept secret in smartphones. Like the EOS has been so thoroughly leaked at this point, if this is to be believed, and coming from EvLeaks, it looks like it is legit. This thing looks like a Lumia 920 from the front.
I think it's probably somewhat of a controlled leak. I really feel it is.
Do you? Yeah?
Yeah. Because there's so many. I mean, how many blurry cams of this thing have you seen?
Oh, God. It's just too many to count. We have more leaks than we're probably going to get product images.
Exactly.
There's so many leaks, it needs to be an RC submarine.
Joe, that was very nice.
Wow.
Well done.
Yeah,
New headline.
that was
Nokia EOS is the RC submarine of the smartphone world.
that was a very poor clap, by the way, from both of us.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That was a very poor joke, but yeah.
Come up here and let me practice on your face. Boom. Hey, listen. Let's talk phones.
Should we? Hey, there's this EOS phone. It's like leaked or
I don't know.
something.
I heard we're boring, so maybe we should talk about other stuff.
Shut up.
Shoe repair.
Yeah.
No,
We're bringing it back, man.
Okay,
So
now-
this is important. This is
Let's put EOS just on the shelf just for a second. We're boring. So
No.
what do we talk about in this episode? Ham radio and shoe repair.
yeah.
Shoe repair.
Okay, kids, we are not boring, or we're going to bring you something else.
Hey,
okay?
I don't know about you, but I talked about crashing a bachelorette party, so
Yeah, we just captured that elusive 80-year-old demographic that we've been trying to chase. Jeez. Anyway.
All right, so hey, can we talk about EOS? I hear it's had some leaks.
Yeah. What the most interesting thing about this to me is that you look at these images, if you look at the piece that's linked in the rundown, and the back still, no, the front looks like a Lumia 920. Like it's got the little AT&T globe up there, so it probably came from them. And aside from that Nokia Pro Cam tile, which we can talk about in a second, this thing looks like exactly like a Lumia 920. And then you go down the page, and then you see the back image that we've been leaked so much, and man, it just looks hilarious from the back, doesn't it? With that giant camera lens, it looks like like an impact crater on a Jovian moon. It's just massive, and it takes up the entire back cover. And then, does anybody want to take a guess at what my least favorite element of the back is?
I'm not going to guess. I'd get it wrong.
Come on, Joe.
The fact that it doesn't have a remote control joystick or something
Yeah, any phone that doesn't come with an RC pad, I'm not a fan of.
for your submarine.
I wonder if Taylor knows.
I don't.
Right above the EvLeaks watermark, there are two dots, which indicate that you probably have to slap a stupid sled on this thing to get it to charge wirelessly, which I'm just not all about.
I didn't even catch that, but yeah, I see that.
Yeah,
I see that.
Yeah. But anyway, listen, let's not be a downer on it. That's fine. I think I'm pretty stoked about this still. I'm very excited about that Pro Cam tile. How does Joe feel about this?
I think it's great. Anything you can do to improve pictures. I mean, especially, duck face pictures taken in the bathroom mirror.
For Instagram.
Well, Instagram's going to upgrade to, I think they're going to 700 by 700. I don't know. It may just be a rumor.
Wow.
But no, it's cool. It's taking a phone which, forgive me here, but, Windows phones look like a slab to me. A pretty colored slab. But this is doing something with that. It's taking something that I've considered relatively boring from a form factor and turning it into something impressive. And I like that. Maybe it's my Android side coming through where we can do cool stuff like that, and we have, even when it's stupid. But it's pushing the platform, and yeah. I think anything to push a platform is good.
Michael, you're going to hate me for this. You're going to reach through the computer and punch me in the face.
We're already there. We're already there.
I want Android on this.
Oh, yeah.
I do.
Yeah,
I want it in blue or yellow.
Because why wouldn't you, right? Because this stands a very good chance of being one of the finest smartphone shooters around, given this company's history. Sure, so why wouldn't you? I understand that. I get that.
Yeah, I want it on in there so bad.
But I think the fact... Now, do you think... This is the crucial question. Do you think that desire would drive, not you, but would drive someone who was either currently carrying or considering Android to adopt Windows Phone? Do you think it's going to be that powerful? We don't know the features yet. We just know that it's probably going to be a 41 megapixel, pixel doubling thing, whatever. But I think this is going to snag a lot of people. Windows Phone has been like laying this base coat of primer on the American public for a while, where it's like, here's some Windows Phone commercials you haven't seen in a while, blah blah blah, and it's like, oh yeah, Windows Phone. And out on the town, I see a little more cyan Lumia 920s. I see some action going on. We have Microsoft stores now. I think when this thing drops, I think it's going to be a really, really big moment. Stephen Schenk had a nice editorial where he was like, the EOS has to be a hit, or or Windows Phone is screwed, and whatever. It was a great piece, and then the comments devolved into the usual mess. But,
of course.
but really, I think that's true. But I think this stands the best chance of being a runaway hit Nokia's ever had. I may have said the same thing about the 920 back in the day.
I said it about the 900. I said this has to be awesome.
Right, but we didn't know that the 900 was going to land with the worst camera ever.
Or on the worst day of the year.
On Easter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, this is going to be our biggest launch ever on Easter, and half of us are closed.
Yeah.
I went to my local store. Like, I wanted it, and I didn't pre-order, but I wanted it, and the guy said nobody's really pre-ordered them, so you can come in on and get it on launch day, and he failed to mention that it was Sunday and he was going to be closed.
Yep.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
I drove there and they were closed. Drove to several other stores.
They won't
were
do
all
the same
closed.
thing this year. I mean, we're going to see this thing on the 11th. We're going to get the announcement, and I don't know, probably to launch a week or two after.
But the problem is not the hardware necessarily. Not even that the specifications aren't, comparable to an Android phone. Nobody really cares about that. We were talking about that earlier. Nobody really cares all that much. The camera would be the only thing that would pull people over, but the biggest problem is pulling people to another ecosystem, to cut ties with all the apps and things that you've bought and
everything that's familiar.
That's the hardest part.
I'm not convinced normal people think about that.
I don't know.
On the whole, I really, I wrote a piece about this like months ago where it was like, what does it really cost for me to change an ecosystem? And I kind of looked at my own usage, and my own usage is crazy. I'm like, what if I were to just uproot myself personally from one ecosystem to another? And I think I figured out I would have lost like $18.
Well,
I would lose like $600 in apps.
Apps and music and movies and whatever.
Right.
That's one thing.
And I think that the point I'm making is that I'm a better example for the common person than either of you guys are, and whatever. I've taken my hit in geek cred this episode already. So, but you know what I mean?
And stuff.
Right. So I think that's okay. So I think that not a lot of people really stop to consider that. I mean, we are talking about a buying public that I'm kind of intimately familiar with from my time in retail, come in and blow a whole paycheck on a phone at full retail.
And we're not talking about iOS users here because they're devout to that iCloud. They really are.
Right. So,
like my mom, she's like, I need something where I can sync my notes from this to this, and I have a Windows computer, so I need them on my computer too. How can I do that? I said, you're not going to be able to use iCloud. Use Evernote. Use Dropbox. Use something like that. And she's like, no, I want to use iCloud.
Right.
You can't.
We're not talking about that. We're not. Yeah. Because in Windows, I don't think Microsoft is really even trying to uproot iOS people with their.
They're not. But they're trying to
now.
bring people into their ecosystem fold, and it's not up to spec. It's not. It's not. I despise SkyDrive. I hate it. And I'm never going to use a live account.
I don't really despise SkyDrive. I mean, sure, that's fine. Now, I'm never going to use a live account. And we've talked about this over and over again. I don't want Outlook.com after my name. But that's a status thing, and I agree. The ecosystem needs work. But people don't always think in terms of ecosystems. That's the point I'm making. People think, people are going to see commercials. Now, it's not a problem if you're trying to capture them.
It's a problem if you're
trying to ensnare them. Sure, but you know
for
what?
Marketing, it's not.
That's fine. But users get themselves into their own bed, and that's fine. Users are going to see the commercials that come out for this phone, and knowing Microsoft, they're either going to be crappy or amazing. And it's going to be like, wow, this phone has a 41 megapixel camera. Oh, and it runs Windows Phone. Well, I don't care. 41 megapixels. Let me go see it. I at least have to go see it. But no other phone is going to be able to hold a candle to that in terms of just spec allure, as misguided as it may be.
Galaxy S4 Zoom, guys. Come on now.
See, I think we're going to have people who, they want a nice phone. They want a really nice camera. They're going to go in and look at everything that's available. The sales guy is going to say, you want a good camera? This is the best camera out there. And then they're going to go over to that. If they are not fully entrenched, and I'm not talking financially entrenched in the ecosystem that they've had, they haven't got $1 million purchased in iTunes stuff and whatnot. If they're not fully entrenched in their current OS, they're not going to care. They're going to pick it up. They'll get used to it. Yeah. But if they've spent any amount of time with another device on another OS, they're not going to like it. And that's nothing against Windows Phone. It's just different than what they're used to. The case in point that I have, my sister is kind of a rebel, older sister. She had a Galaxy S2, and she'd had some other Android phones before that and didn't like them because she always got the cheapy free ones that were low power, underspec, slow and laggy, because you're getting cheap. That's what you're buying when you buy cheap. You're not buying inexpensive, you're buying cheap.
Yeah.
She got this Galaxy S2 and physically broke it. It wasn't any problem with the phone. You just should not drop it that many times.
This sucks. I'm going to break it over my knee.
Yeah. So she decided, I'm going to go and get an iPhone. So she got an iPhone 4S on Sprint. I know, Sprint. And she showed it off the first week, and look, I got an iPhone, and woohoo. This was after the iPhone 5 was out, and ultimately kept coming to me, how do I do this? What do I do for this? Yeah. How can I do this? I don't know how to do this. Well, I can do this, but it's so much more different. This is so much harder than the other one. She had that phone for 2 months, 3 months tops, and she's like, I can't take it anymore. She sold it on the local classifieds, and used the money that she got from that, went and got a Galaxy S3, and has been super, super happy.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a similar story from a friend. Actually, I was hanging out with her last night, and she went and she got this Droid X. She asked me, what phone should I get? And at the time, the Droid X was the bee's knees on Verizon, so I said, go with that. Get the Droid X. She didn't want to switch carriers, so she wanted an iPhone. She didn't want to switch carriers, so she went with the Droid X, and she used it for her full 2 years and upgraded to the iPhone 5. And she'd been dying for an iPhone. She got the iPhone 5. She's been using it since September, and we were hanging out last night, and she's like, man, I really miss Android. I really do. iOS is okay, but I really miss Android.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily, she probably hated all the lag and the bugs and the glitches and the force closing, and we all do. Nobody really likes any of that, but you get used to it, and it becomes the norm. I hated Android when I first came to it because I was so used to BlackBerry. I hated iOS because I was so used to Android and BlackBerry.
So how does this relate to Windows Phone?
How does this relate? I'm saying I know several people who have I was getting there, Michael. Thank you.
I know.
We're answering your question.
I'm just
Michael.
trying to get behind the truck and push a little.
question.
Just trying to move the ship.
So I have about 2 or 3 friends who have tried Windows Phone. They went upgraded to various Windows phones. One went with the Focus. But
hey, I liked the Focus. That was my first Windows phone. I like that thing.
So they went with the Focus, and some others had some different ones. And as soon as they got them, they used them for about a week, and they're like, I can't get used to this. I don't like it. It's not, it doesn't have everything I need, and they go back to Android. And I've seen that outside of this tech crowd so many times, and I don't think it's because Windows Phone is bad, and it's not because it's boring like I say it is. I don't like it because I get kind of bored really, really, really quickly on Windows Phone, but I think it's because they can't break from what they're used to. They don't want to give it a chance because it's so different.
Yeah, their biggest strength is also their biggest weakness. It is different from everything out there, which is its biggest strength. They don't have a legacy that they have to build on top of and backwards compatibility that they have to worry about. It's a fresh slate. They're starting to get that backwards compatibility issue now since they've got Windows Phone 7 and whatnot that they've got to have support for. And it's different than what Windows Phone 8 and on up are. So they've got that. That's a huge advantage. Just dump everything, start over. But it's also different from everything else.
Yeah, I think there's also a stigma. I think there is, because Windows 8 has been kind of a flop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the biggest reason is the interface is not easy, and it's not set up for laptop use or desktop use. It's mainly for like touch input. That's what it was built around. Yep. And people upgrade. They get this Windows 8 machine, and they're like, "Oh my God, I don't know how to use it." And I've talked to several people who've bought computers and returned them because they just don't want that. They, of course, don't buy a Windows 7 license. They just go back to their old computer or something. And I think that's kind of creating a stigma for Windows Phone because it uses a very similar interface as by design. And people are like, I didn't like this on my computer. I'm not going to like it on a phone. And it's different. It's a different experience on a phone. It is
very different, and it's far superior on the phone.
It's far superior. It's built for mobile use, really. And
that's a good question.
Yeah, and it's easy to use on a phone. It's easy to use, easy to navigate, but there's a stigma, and it's not because it's so clunky on a phone. It's because it's so clunky on a desktop and a laptop that people don't want to give it a try because it looks the same.
It definitely hasn't been the hit on the desktop that Microsoft would have liked, and that may be having a reverse effect. Yeah.
Do you think Microsoft named the Xbox One the One instead of the Xbox 8 to get away from that stigma?
Maybe. Because it's going to have... I haven't seen...
Xbox 8 just doesn't really have a great ring to it.
They were going to call it the 720 for a while. There were rumors they were going to call it that.
Well, that would have made sense because that's double 360. But here's the thing. I don't care about that at the moment because we have a listener mail piece that slots really, really nicely into what we're talking about. Hey, Joe, can you stick around for one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, then let's start up listener mail. Hello. I have a question specifically for Michael Fisher, says Meher Dakduk, which is the closest I can get to pronouncing your name properly. It is to my knowledge that your daily driver is or was a Nokia Lumia 920. Yes, that is true. My DD also happens to be a Lumia 920. My question to you is, has the freshness or novelty of Windows Phone 8 worn off for you yet, or do you still enjoy it? And Maher asks, he says, I'm asking this because I think it wore off for me, and then goes on to suggest that maybe Nokia should do the Android thing. We're not getting into that again. We've had that discussion on the podcast several times. I don't want to talk about that. But the real great question is, has it worn off for me after using it for quite a while? And it factors so nicely into what we were just talking about. And I don't have an answer. And that's not a cop-out. It is a shame. Because, yes, I use the 920 as my daily driver, but what are we doing all the time, guys?
Switching phones.
Exactly. We're reviewing phones from different platforms. And so this creates this artificial sense of when I come back to the Lumia 920, it's a sense of relief because it means that when I'm using this phone, I don't have to constantly treat it as a review device.
It's an anniversary.
What it is. Right. And when I come back, it's like, oh, wow, live tiles. Okay, now I remember that. And it's set up the way I want, and I love it. So every time I come back to it, I really do like it. If I had been using it this whole time, I probably would be a little tired of not being able. There are elements of it that I find very limiting. Yes, I don't like that the theme color needs to be a single, like, red wash or a blue wash or something like that. Like, you can't assign colors to individual tiles. I don't like that. I understand the reason for it, but I don't like it. And I'm even now tired of the different tile sizes. I even want almost a third level of tile size now, or a fourth level rather. So yeah, I can understand how you would feel limited by it.
Yeah, I feel very limited.
Everyone knows you feel limited.
Yeah, well, one thing that doesn't make sense to me is why there's such a small selection of colors. And one answer to that is...
even smaller on Windows Phone 7. They brought in new colors for 8.
That was one of their big features. Now you have new colors. Why not just throw in a color wheel? Why would that be so hard? Or bad? A color wheel. Everyone understands how it works.
Yep.
And you could set any color you wanted. It's pretty awesome and novel. It's genius.
For me, the thing is, like, not that you need a color wheel necessarily. I mean, they could just add 20 more colors and I'd be happy. But I still wouldn't be quite happy because everything gets painted that same color. I can't make my text message tile the same. Yeah, I can't make my text message tile different from my email tile. Like, for example, it's like, and I get that they're going for that unity and stuff. And you know what, though? I think it is time to open that up a little bit because Metro was very fresh when it was still called Metro. It is, and it's still going to be fresh to people who've never looked at it before. It's not fresh and new to tech-oriented folks.
Yeah, but what you were saying about switching phones, I get asked about 30 times or more a week what my daily driver is, especially on YouTube.
Right.
Everybody's like, you were using this phone the other day. Why are you using this phone now? And that's kind of my daily life. I don't ever really use the same phone for more than a couple days. This week alone, my daily driver has been the iPhone 5, the HTC One, the Nexus 4, the Galaxy Note 2, and the Ativis.
Right. The daily driver question is kind of less relevant these days. Right. And I feel like there's this implied... there's an implied validity to the device we decide to use as a daily driver because people are like, well, I just want to cut through all this review stuff, and what phone do you use? And maybe that one's the best one. No, the daily driver is the best choice for you. It's a very personal thing. Joe, what's your daily driver? Nexus 4 still?
Yeah, I've been carrying the Galaxy S4 with me, and I did that for a week and a half because I had to. That's what we do for the reviews, so we're not just, oh, look, it's a phone and blah, blah, blah. We abandon what we have, what our go-to device is, and we use this almost exclusively so we can give you a good, solid review.
Nice.
But as soon as I got that review all written and scripted, and I was happy to set that thing down and plug it into the charger and let it charge up so I could do all of the filming for the review on a fully charged device, because there's nothing worse than getting halfway through a shot and your battery dies.
True.
But yeah, I went back to the Nexus 4, and it doesn't have the nice screen. It's not quite as fast. I definitely don't have LTE, but out here in the Pocketnow Utah offices, Verizon LTE is not all that stellar, unless it's the middle of the night. And I'm happy with what I've got. The phone does what I need it to do, and I think a lot of people are seeing that. If your phone does what you want and you're happy with it, then back to Mahir's question, if you can keep it fresh, if you can keep it so that it does what you need it to do and it doesn't get in your way when you're trying to do it, that's really the measure of a good phone. That's a good daily driver. And that's one thing that keeping those Windows tiles the same color, keeping them all nice and uniform, it takes away the fluff from the OS and the fluff from the device, and it says, let's get down to business and get this thing done quickly and easily. You're not playing with it as much, you're using it.
Yeah. And I get a lot of questions, why do you keep going back to the Note 2? It's old now. And the answer to that is, actually, Brandon was making fun of me last week for it, or earlier this week. He said, you keep going back to that. Use something else. I'm like, I love it. There's a reason I go back to the Note 2 every time. And I said this on Twitter. It's because there are two things, the S Pen and the battery life. And those are the two things that make that phone. And they're what set it apart. I don't even have LTE on my Note 2 because I have the international version. Weird. And, I don't have LTE on any device. I have 3 carriers, and I don't have LTE. I take that back. I have it on my iPhone. I have it on my iPhone 5 on Verizon, but I don't really use that all that much. But the S Pen, I use it once or twice a week. But when it's there, I need it, and I don't want to use anything else. I need that S Pen.
The worst is when you're like leaving the Note 2 to another device and you reach for the S Pen and it's not there.
Yes.
You reach down to the silo. It's like, oh crap, I forgot.
That and I have trouble with battery life on every phone I ever touch.
Yeah.
Every single one. The HTC One, the reviews that we had on Pocketnow, they were pretty positive with battery life. Not great, but positive. It's okay. It lasts.
Yeah.
Mine dies.
Yeah.
It just drops off. Same with the Nexus 4. My Nexus 4 lasts about 8 hours, 9 hours off the charger,
You remember
whether
that?
I use it or not.
You remember that thing that your listeners aren't going to hear because it's edited out, where you were like, "Is this going to be our longest podcast ever?"
Thank you,
I remember
Michael.
that.
No problem. Listen, we have another really awesome email from Ben Chung. Hello, all to Pocketnow. I'd like to share with you a thought I've had for a while. I hope you can include it in a future podcast. Done, Ben. Ever
It's
since
here.
Apple launched their third iPad last year under the name of the new iPad, I thought it had given them the perfect opportunity to reveal the new iPhone later in the year. Why don't OEMs adopt this naming convention for their flagship devices? HTC could bring out the new HTC One in 2014. Samsung with their new Galaxy S. Or is it because they still want to continue to sell older products while Apple don't, except for the iPhone after a refresh? So this is a cool idea. This is something I hadn't really thought about. What do you guys think about this? Just manufacturers just kind of stealing that thing and dropping the numbers entirely and being like, you know what? It's the new BlackBerry Q10 or whatever. It's the new Galaxy S.
I think
Samsung's doing that. You know,
Well, they're
they've
not.
got-
They're throwing numbers on it, though.
Yeah,
They
well, it works
are,
for
but-
some things. Like the iPad, it works. It works because everybody kind of expects something marginal from a new iPad, and the upgrades to the iPad have been modest and needed. They've been good, but if you call everything the new this, the new that, everything kind of gets a little old and it doesn't get as exciting anymore.
It also only works for like a little while, right? Because if you start
Yeah.
doing that after 6 years and people are like, "Oh, I have the iPad," I was like,
Okay.
"Jeez, well, which one do I don't know."
The new one
The
from-
A lot of
2012.
it was the new iPad. I'm going to put that in the newspaper when I try and sell it.
Right.
I have the new iPad from 3 years ago. So
We
I
were
don't know
talking-
about you, but I mean, it's.
I wrote that editorial on the Xperia Z Ultra about how it's not a smartphone, but it's really a tablet. And someone in the comments who got like 7 upvotes for this was like, "Why don't they just call it nothing? People can call it what they want." I'm like, "Yeah, that's an awesome idea. Why don't we launch a product with no name?"
That guy was stoned. That was a bad idea.
But so product naming is really difficult, right?
It is, and it's important. It's more important than most people give it credit for. They're like,
absolutely.
"Oh, branding, what's in a name?" But there's a lot in a name.
Tons.
People don't call the Galaxy S4 the Galaxy S4. They call it the new Galaxy.
The new Galaxy, right?
That's exactly what they call it. But if
Even though it
Samsung
has
called
the
it the
number
new
after the end.
Galaxy, if Samsung called it the new Galaxy, it wouldn't make sense because there's so many Galaxy phones. And even if they called it the new Galaxy S, it really wouldn't make sense because there's so many new Galaxy S's. They can't do it because they make so many different versions of everything. That's why Samsung can't do it, because you have the Galaxy S4 Zoom, the Galaxy S4 Active, the Galaxy S4 Mini, and the Galaxy S4. So what do you call all of them? The new Galaxy S Active, the new Galaxy? No, it just doesn't work in their model because they make so many products.
Right.
Apple makes 2, 3 products.
Right.
iPad Mini, iPad, and iPhone, or iPod as well. But I mean, it's just
And the
it's
Mac
a
Pro
totally
trash
different
can.
thing. Yes, and
Don't
that.
forget that one.
Right. Yeah.
And
The beer can.
HTC could, but it just, with this one, it really doesn't make sense. The new one. Okay, if it were named, if next year's one were called the HTC New One or New HTC One, however you would want to name that, it just wouldn't. One, it doesn't ring, it doesn't roll off the tongue. But 2, you don't get as excited about the new this. Apple has a way of magically making everyone excited about little things, but other companies don't have that magic formula. It's something specific to Apple.
It is.
Yeah, other companies have to sell stuff that has features, that has specs. Apple can sell stuff that has new.
Yeah,
And people will buy it. It's something that Apple can do. And Apple customers will line up for it.
with a
I
stupid
don't understand
name,
that, but
like
okay.
FaceTime. This one's got FaceTime. Oh, thank you.
I still think
excited about it.
FaceTime is a better brand name than Chatheads.
All right, we're not talking about Facebook here. They're
Chat on.
Let's
chat on awful too.
I would be happy to run this conversation into the ground, but we actually have one more piece of listener mail that can't happen unless you both are on the air, so we have to get to that.
Do it.
Yeah, Ben, thank you for your question. That was an awesome question, and I'm sure we'll be talking more about that in editorials here soon. This last piece of listener mail is from Vineet, pronounced Vineeth, from India. Thank you, Vineeth, first of all, for the pronunciation guide. You see how I struggle, and I appreciate your help. Vineeth has been following our channel for over a year now. He follows a bunch of other channels too, but he never visits them every 5 hours for an update like he does at Pocketnow. Love your podcast. Thank you, Vineeth. We appreciate it. My question is for Joe and or Taylor, because both of you have knowledge about root, and Taylor owns a rooted HTC One. I recently got a black HTC One. Even though I don't plan to root my phone immediately, I would like to know what exactly is the difference between a ROM and a firmware. Custom ROMs normally come saying they're based on a particular firmware. If HTC rolls out a new firmware and I'm rooted, how do I get the new firmware onto my phone? I understand one method is to relock the phone and bring it stock and update the firmware. Is there any other method without losing root? I know this question is very specific, but I wish someone could answer it for me.
Generally, when HTC rolls out an update, someone will get it. They will, update their phone to it and not really log into anything. So they leave everything kind of stock, completely bare bones stock, and then they will help me out here, Joe. They will dump. They'll do a system dump and upload it for other people who will then probably customize it to some extent, maybe deodex it or
Zipline and all that
Zipline and root it, and so you're pre-rooted when you flash it and all kinds of stuff. So they make either minor changes or huge themed changes, but either way they will upload a customized version of it for you to flash, and all you do is download that ROM, boot to your recovery, do a couple wipes, your cache, your factory data reset, maybe Dalvik, and flash it, and you're good to go.
Okay, so to answer the kind of the second or third point in that email, if you're going to go back to stock, if you want to get a stock update, and let me take that one step further. When you root, you do not have to go with a custom ROM, and a lot of people don't. They'll root and keep the stock ROM. It's just rooted so you can run root apps. That's cool. That's fine. Love doing it. More power to you. You don't have to run a custom ROM. When you get an over-the-air update, you are probably going to lose root. Not all the time, but just count on it, and you'll have to reroute. And the process to root may be different on that update than it was before, and that's okay. A lot of times they go back, these manufacturers go back and they patch the hole that let you root the old way in the update, and that might even be the entire purpose for that update. It's just the way things are. So plan on having to reroute. That's just a normal fact of life if you're going to be doing it that way. If you're running a custom ROM, obviously you're not going to get an over-the-air update from the manufacturer anymore. You have to get that from whoever makes your ROM. Which segues me into the other question. What's the difference between a ROM and a firmware? Those two terms can be used interchangeably in certain contexts. Generally, when you're talking about a ROM, that is the entire package that runs on a device. It's the operating system, the kernel, the skins, the bloatware, the whatever is in there, the configurations, all packaged up into one ROM. And it's just the term that we call for it. It's probably the wrong terminology for it, but that's what we call it. A firmware technically is a batch of software that you take and you apply to a memory chip. That's firmware. When we're talking about firmware in this context, it's usually talking about what firmware does the radio use, what firmware does this or that or the other use. So it's like a sub-program.
The official software usually.
Yeah, and that's the other context, is the firmware is the official software. Radio updates and whatnot, we usually refer to those as firmwares rather than ROMs, even though the terminology could be used interchangeably.
Yeah.
Nice.
Also, if you unlock your bootloader, you're probably not going to receive your over-the-air updates. And also, I'm not certain that HTC will let you relock your bootloader, because you have to go through HTC to have to unlock the bootloader. I don't believe they offer a relock, unlike a Nexus where you can just plug it in, open up terminal, and OEM factory OEM relock or whatever.
OEM lock.
OEM lock, yeah.
This is intense stuff.
Yeah, so
it's awesome. See what you miss by doing all the fluffy articles and editing podcasts, Michael.
Man,
you missed this.
Hey.
So if you're gonna root two notes, you're gonna have to unlock first, and when you do unlock, you're gonna lose everything. So you're gonna want to back up everything you can before you do unlock your bootloader. So pictures and everything, get those off and on external storage, and make sure you want to stay that way, because it doesn't look like you're going to be able to go back if you decide that's not, at least not with a locked bootloader, which means even if you go back to official software, you may not get the official updates.
Right.
So keep that in mind before you do any of that.
And you may want to keep that in mind before you go in to purchase a device. If this is something that you're going to want to be able to do with your device, whatever device it is, you're going to have consequences to your actions, and you might not like those. And if that's the case, get a different device. Vote with your wallet and buy something from somebody else that will let you do what you want. And you may have to sacrifice, going with an HTC One to a Galaxy S4, or you may have to sacrifice by going to an HTC One Developer Edition.
Right.
But just be as fully informed as you can before you make that initial purchase, and you're not going to have many surprises. And of course, the best way to do that is by listening and subscribing to the podcast and tuning into Pocketnow.com all the time.
Vineeth, I hope you were taking notes, because that was a really huge info dump, and I'm really glad that Joe and Taylor were both on the air, because I would not have been able to answer that question in the detail that these guys can, and that's why I love y'all. Thank you. Thank you. And speaking of love of the podcast, we have a final piece of listener mail that doesn't require any input. It's just a thank you. This is from John Martin. Hey, to whoever reads this. Just wanted to say I love all the podcasts, and just listened to 5 of them on my 20-hour drive home.
Oh, my God.
And loved every second of them. You guys do a great job, and all of you are very interesting people to listen to. Keep up the great work, John. John, you are the new podcast super fan.
You were awesome.
5 in a row, man.
That is almost 10 hours of us talking about nonsense.
Seriously cool. And it's funny, like that might be the one case that validates our different hosts for every episode model.
Oh, yes.
Because I feel like if it had been we three or any of the other three for that entire 20 hours, it wouldn't have been great. But
yeah,
John,
think it sets us apart a little bit, because we're not the same people every single time.
I think you're right. I think that's nice. And
I think it's about time. I think it's high time for another guest.
I think you're right. I think it's time for another guest from Outside Pocket Now, and we should discuss that off the air, because some of us need to pee. Oh,
I need to pee.
Yeah,
I will. Yes,
I've got.
You boys are wussies.
I have 3 cups of coffee in.
Whatever, Joe. You've left 4 times this podcast.
It was twice, and that was rebooting because of an SSD.
You know what you can do when you reboot? You can pee.
I am 32 ounces of coffee in since the beginning of this podcast.
We got a jet. Taylor, I know, doesn't have anything profound to say, but Joe, Joe, do you have anything to close out the show with?
It's wonderful being here, guys. Everyone listening in, you make it worthwhile. Keep the listener email coming in, and keep in mind, because of the way we do our format, your email may be postponed until we can get the right people on the podcast to answer it. So be patient. We haven't forgotten you. But yeah, you guys are great. We're the reason. Yes. You're the reason we do all this stuff, and we love it. And if you want us to keep doing it, make sure you keep leaving those positive reviews and thumbs upping on YouTube and all of that other fun stuff. Share it with your friends, and bring them into the group, because the party's better when you got more than just a few bachelorettes, right?
That's exactly that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And we are all bachelorettes here, aren't we?
Well, yes, we are, and drama queens. I just want to say that it makes my day, week, month, whatever it may be, whenever I get tweets and Facebook comments and Google Plus stuff asking why I wasn't on the weekly. So I always loved it.
Oh, that is nice. Isn't that nice? Oh, that's
yeah, it's a nice confidence boost that I don't get all the time. So
especially not from Michael.
No, definitely not for me. You're abusive.
Slamming me and throwing me down on the ground under the bus and kicking dirt in my face.
It's just keeping the balance in the universe, bro.
It makes me a stronger person.
Yep, makes you hard. That's all.
And
my skin is tough.
That's exactly right.
It's very thick.
We are going to have a very, very cool week next week, making Taylor's skin even tougher as we talk Nokia EOS. I'm not sure when the podcast will fall next week. It's a very busy week, but definitely tune in for, I believe, we are having a live hangout for our live impressions from New York City as Nokia unveils whatever it's going to unveil on the 11th. Our own Adam Lane will be there covering the event, and we're going to have a lot to say about it, so make sure and you stay tuned for that one.
I've also got a huge, gigantic comparison coming up, too.
And that will be very exciting. And we have a ton of time-consuming videos actually coming up next week as well. So as always, more stuff coming down the pipe. And gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. But that is going to do it for episode 051 of The Weekly. Find us on Twitter so you can keep Taylor happy. He is at Casper Tech, Caspertek. Joe Levi is at Joe Levi. And I am at Captain Two Phones. Follow Pocketnow officially at Pocketnow on Twitter, as Pocketnow on Facebook and Google+. Leave us a review on iTunes or Xbox Music if you haven't gotten around to it yet. Thanks again to everyone who did leave those iTunes reviews last week. And if you have a topic, question, or suggestion for the podcast, or you just want to say hi or listen to us for 20 hours and tell us about it, email us, podcast@pocketnow.com. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next week.
No more 4-star reviews.
And good day.
What a jerk. Hey, what happened? You get blown up by a firework? What happened, Joe?
I think I've got an SSD that's failing.
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
So
that's bad, bro.
All of a sudden, everything froze, and when I rebooted, it told me, "Please insert valid boot media."
Oh no! Not ready. Reading drive C : / abort retry fail.
Yeah, it wasn't like that cool, but anyway.
I want a T-shirt that says abort retry fail.
I made a T-shirt that said "Object reference not set to an instance of an object."
Did you really?
Nice.
I like that. Hey, listen. So the point is, the point is that we're back.